Good afternoon, and thank you very much, and welcome to On Point for today, the third day of May 2024. Of course, the month of May have started, so we're into the fifth month. Time is going by quickly, so at least we normally say if you haven't made plans to do certain things as yet, get them together and let's get moving. My name is Alexis Jeffers, and of course it's always good to be here in your company on a Friday afternoon. We're here for just 1 hour from 1 p.m. until 2 p.m. and indeed we have done so over the last couple of months, and we continue to press on in terms of bringing this show to the general public. Before I get any further, let me just acknowledge our listeners who would tune in on a Friday afternoon to make sure that they get some of the information that we're imparting. But I want to start right here on Nevis and say shout out to all of our Nevision listeners who are in tune to Von Radio this afternoon, whether by way of radio, by way of Facebook, other social media platforms as well, YouTube. Von Radio is being carried on all social media platforms, and so we want to welcome everyone. Of course, the entire Nevision public listens to Von Radio. It's the only station of choice here on the island of Nevis. And of course, we do have listeners down there in St. Kitts, because from time to time, I will come in contact with persons who will say that I listened to you on Friday, and surprisingly, they can tell me most of the things that would have been discussed or mentioned here on the program. So welcome to you there in St. Kitts, of course, in Statia, St. Eustatius, Statia, whichever one you want to use, Sabre, St. Bart's, French and Dutch St. Martin. Of course, down there in the US and British Virgin Islands, we do have quite a number of nationals who listen to Von Radio. Welcome to you. Puerto Rico, we go up to the United States, of course, the eastern seaboard from South Florida all the way up to New Hampshire, Vermont, and those states up there, Maine. All of those smaller states that are up in the northeast. And of course, you travel across into the Midwest, Oklahoma, and into Texas, and up to Kansas and Chicago, Illinois, that is, and over into the West, California, Oregon, and also Washington State. Well, we just have to get accustomed to some of these things, because we know our nationals are planted all over the world, and we just want to make sure. And of course, up in Europe, Canada, before I forget Canada, then into Europe and Asia and the like. So I've covered most of those areas that I am certain that we have nationals, whether they are working, visiting, or further in their education, that type of thing. You're all out there, and we wish you well, and we thank you for tuning in, because you absolutely want to know what is happening here on the island of Nevis, and by extension the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis as well. At this point in time, normally we would go through a certain list in terms of acknowledging families that are in the bereaved column. I want to acknowledge the family of a villager and someone who I grew up with, Mr. Lofton Laffy James, and I understand he has a nickname he goes by the nickname Clock. Well, you learn things when persons have passed, because I honestly didn't know that he had that nickname of Clock, but I knew him as Laffy for his 57 years here on earth. And why I bring that up is because I missed mentioning it last week, so I'm doing so this afternoon. But I will say that his funeral service will be held this afternoon at 2 o'clock over there at the St. James Anglican Church. And if you look at my attire, well, I'm all dressed and ready to go there as soon as I'm done. But Laffy and I would have grown up together to some extent. We went to the Gingerland Secondary School. Before that, we obviously went to the St. James Primary School, and then we played cricket. We were involved in youth cricket. As a matter of fact, I can say to you that Laffy and myself were the only two young men from that side of the island, meaning north of the island, who would have made our check into Charlestown and practiced and competed to make the Nevis youth team. Laffy would have gone on to make the Nevis youth team, of course, yes, and played some matches. He was an all-arounder, a batsman, bowler, nice little what you call it, seam bowler or medium bowler, with his of, out cutters and in cutters, and then he had some batting skills as well. He was a very good athlete also. He ran 100, 200 meters for sure. He was a sprinter, and indeed he would have had his exploits in sports. And something that came to mind the other day is that I just mentioned that we were the two cricketers from that side, Butler's Brick Hill area. And those days back in the 80s, when we were coming into Grove Park, things were challenging, difficult transportation circumstances. We hardly could have found a lift into Charlestown and out, but we tried our best to hop onto the back of a pickup truck or something. And most times when we were leaving Charlestown, though, we would go towards Gingerland. And if we are traveling with anyone from Gingerland, say Hanley's Road, Rollins, or the environs around there, they would exit the vehicle, and all of us would exit the vehicle, I would say, and the folks from Hanley's Road would go down to Hanley's Road, folks from Rollins would go to Rollins, and then Laffy and I would have to walk all the way to Butler's. And when we get to Butler's, Laffy would go up into Butler's, and I would have to continue my journey down into Brick Hill, let's say 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. And those days, as a young man, you traveling some dark areas and you're in the middle of the road and hoping for the best. I don't want to say anymore, but those were the challenges we had then. And because of that, of course, once I would have become the elected representative of St. James, I said that if our young men are interested in cricket and they want to aspire to the highest levels, then we need to have the facilities up there in St. James to accommodate them and to make sure that they're not frustrated in their pursuit. So we would have invested heavily in the VOLJ and sporting facility, and of course that is playing a major role, an integral role in the development of our young men and young women in the area of sports, whether it's cricket, football, athletics. That facility is being used as much as possible these days to ensure that the skills that we know that our young men and young women have, they can be developed and honed to the best of their abilities to ensure that we can produce good cricketers, footballers and athletes here on the island of Nevis, but more so up there in the north of the island. So those challenges have been eliminated with that particular facility. And while I'm at that, let me also mention the work being done by one Micey Wendell Wallace. He's been doing a phenomenal job in terms of grooming, in terms of working, in terms of instilling the discipline in those young fellas up there in cricket, for sure. I spoke to him, and Micey, I'm saying it here on the radio, I want you on board in terms of coming here one of these Fridays so we can sit and talk cricket and talk about the program that you currently have ongoing up there, and also acknowledge some of the youngsters who would have gone on not only to the Nevis youth team but also to the Leeward Islands youth team. So I want you to be here at some point so we can have that discussion. So prepare yourself. But I was talking about Lofton James, and he certainly would have played his part in terms of ensuring that the game of cricket was played at a level whereby he was emulated and others would have gone on to become much better than he has done, of course, yes, but he would have laid the platform or the groundwork for some young persons up there in the St. James, Butler's Brick Hill area. And Laffy, I'm sure his entire family is feeling his loss, but of course, there is a cycle to life. You're born, you live, and you die, and the final cycle is one of the most difficult ones. So we would have lost him, and we pay our respects at 2 o'clock. And may his soul continue to rest in peace. But I just wanted to mention that because you just don't let someone like Lofton James pass and don't acknowledge his contribution in the area of sports, cricket in particular. Quickly, whoever is celebrating birthday today, I want to express my greetings, best of wishes to you. And as I always say, when you're celebrating, just celebrate like it's the last. It is not the last, but celebrate as if it's that. That being the case, I must say, because when it's all said and done, every penny you have it belongs to you, and if you can spend all on yourself on this birthday, do it. I know you won't do it, but just go ahead and enjoy yourself, because life is so fleeting these days. Today you're here, today you're gone, or this minute you're here, this minute you're gone. So enjoy it to the best of your ability. I don't have any names at this point in time, but I'll leave that. I'm going along quickly because I have a guest in the station and I'll on the program with me today, and I'll certainly get to him shortly. But quickly, the weather outside is beautiful here in Nevis. Listen, there was some rain earlier, and when I heard the rain, or saw the rain falling as well, I started singing to myself, there will be showers of blessings we need. You know that song, that old hymn? You know, many of us would have grown up on that song. There shall be showers of blessings sent from the heavens above, something like that. But anyway, showers of blessings were with us this morning, and it's always good to get some showers. We are just about a month away from the hurricane season as well, so I want persons to start their preparation or continue with your preparation. We'll talk about that, a bit later in terms of a subsequent program, but keep that in mind. It is expected to be above average, I understand, but be that as it may, the Lord will give us no more than we can bear, and that is what we have to keep in mind. The medical fundraiser that we've had over the last couple of years, we're having that again this year. So our medical fundraiser 2024 takes place on the 20th of May, that is Whit Monday. Last week I spoke in depth to that, and I also mentioned all of those names of persons who played an important and integral role last year, and we are seeking your assistance again. Whatever you did last year, we want you to make that contribution again this year, and I'll be reaching out to each and every one of you. So if you haven't heard from me, expect a call, and when I call you, I want you to respond and say that I am on board and I'm doing exactly what I did last year, whether you did cook up baked chicken, stew pork, stew chicken, whether Johnny cake, saltfish, mackerel, fried fish, whatever the case might be. If you provided music last year, we're coming back at you. And next week when I speak further about this, I'll go more in depth in terms of what some of the things we'll be doing over there. But that's on the 20th of May. That's Whit Monday. I want us to prepare for that. Yeah. Okay. Very good. So it's just about almost 1:15. Time goes by quickly, and we have some very important information to discuss this afternoon. So I'll now turn to my guest this afternoon on the program, and I will say to the gentleman that is here, he's my second guest on this program. The first person who came by would have been Jameer Claxton some time ago, and we were talking sports then, so we're talking a different area this afternoon. So I want to turn now to my guest, and I want to welcome you, Mr. Andrew Hendrickson. And can I call you by your nickname?
Yes.
Okay, well, so I want to welcome you in your capacity as the General Manager of the Nevis Solid Waste Management Authority, and we're going to talk solid waste this afternoon, anything surrounding solid waste and the, the cleaning and cleanliness of the island of Nevis. We're proud of the work that you've been doing, you and your team, because of course it takes a collective effort for us to achieve what we have been achieving here on the island of Nevis. So I'll let you introduce yourself, and we can develop a discussion from there.
Well, good afternoon, Brother Alexis, and good afternoon to your listening audience. And I wish to say that I am very happy to be here with you so that we can chit-chat.
Yes.
I know we're here to talk about solid waste management and all the wonderful things which have been happening at the authority. But you just gave me quite a surprise when you mentioned my good friend Lafton James. As you know, we all attended junior and secondary school, and Laffy was also one of the people who I competed against. In the same 100 meters, 200 meters, we were always battling, and we were good friends as well. And the one thing that nobody could ever challenge Laffy with was the high jump,
right,
and the long jump. He used to pedal. When he did the long jump, he would pedal, and his style of doing the high jump was the Western roll.
Right.
And he was just so well-rounded and everything when he came to sports, and he was a great sportsman. So I wish to take the opportunity to extend condolences to his family and friends, all those who are left to mourn, and may his soul rest in peace. He made a wonderful, wonderful contribution to my memories of my school days at Gingerland Secondary School, and I know that there are so many right now who still cherish the memory of Laughton James and all that he brought to us when we were schoolmates.
You remember what house he competed for?
Yes. He was red.
Red house.
Yeah, and I was on blue.
But I have to say that I was on green house.
Yeah, yes, you were.
Green house.
Okay.
All right.
Yes. So, that being said, as you know, I'm always happy to speak about Nevis Solid Waste Management Authority and all that we try to do to support every single activity that takes place in Nevis. We are involved. Sometimes you don't even know that we are involved, but we are always there, always making a contribution. There is no function which is held on this island and solid waste is not contributing in one way or the next.
Okay, good. And well, let's go back a little bit, because you know what your accomplishments are at this point in time. It didn't happen overnight for sure, and solid waste would have had its challenges equipment wise and so forth. So we can look at some of the challenges that you would have had to overcome to get to where you are. So you can speak to that, because you've had a few years.
Yes.
Whether inside or outside, because
yes, I'm going on 10 years at the authority. I started as a driver.
Okay.
So I can speak from way back then. Well, the major challenge which we faced when I first started working at solid waste was always equipment. Old equipment, keeping them maintained, and being able to sustain a consistent collection, you know. And thankfully, with time, we've been able to acquire new trucks, thanks to the Nevis Island Administration, of which you were part at the time, and, yeah, integral part, thanks to Premier Brantley and the rest of the cabinet. And now we're in a position where we no longer have those issues where we don't have reliable trucks to maintain our schedule. And if it's one thing we've grown very accustomed to and very good at, is collections. We are very good at collecting. We work on holidays, we work on rainy days, we work on sunny days, we work in the dark, we work in the light. We are always there. And I would like to give thanks and praises to the drivers and the loaders, and also the landfill staff, main office staff, all of us who make a contribution to delivering this service to our beloved Nevis.
Yeah.
Also, we had equipment challenges for many years, up until 2021, when, again, thanks to the Nevis Island Administration, we were able to secure a loan from a prestigious bank here to purchase our own excavator and our own bulldozer. So we are in a better place at the landfill in terms of space management, time management, moving around material, and we are much more independent and proficient now in our landfill operations because of that.
Right. Well, I must express my gratitude to the entire staff there, because there is some pride that I look at these guys who work, especially those who you know, operate on a daily basis on the road for the collection of garbage and so forth, and the way they go about their task is commendable, and I'm sure the results that you're seeing is consistent with that effort. Yes,
and I would like to just remind the general public that most of these guys who come to the villages to collect, the drivers, we have 2 teams, and they start at 2 a.m. every morning, Monday to Friday. And most of these guys, their alarm is set for 12 midnight. And they find their way to the meeting point faithfully every day to perform this duty for us. And we don't have many problems with our staff.
Right.
We don't have many problems. The teams work in a very well coordinated and in a spirit of with a strong team spirit, and so it makes management easy from my perspective. Yes.
So in terms of collection, you're comfortable with the amount of trucks that you have? When I say comfortably, you can always have excess in everything.
Yes, but at least we're in a position where each team is assigned a truck. And what that means depth of service. I could recall when we used to have one truck to service the whole island. And so the teams would work in tandem, starting at 2 o'clock.
Right.
And would be running one after the other. And those of us who had to wait third in line to drive the truck or to load, it was a very tiresome and frustrating time at the authority. But thankfully, now each of the teams have a truck, and we also have backup trucks that we can rely on in case one of our main trucks go down. And that is why also you find that the Newcastle, the team which clean from Jessups all the way over to Newcastle, we call that the Newcastle team. They are able to start at 4 a.m. now because they have their own truck to use. They don't have to wait for another team to complete their shift to get a truck. Also, the team which cleans St. John's and St. James's in terms of butlers and Brickhill, they also have their own truck, and they are starting at 4 a.m. as well. The reason why we try to let them start as early as possible is because my management thrust was always to work from darkness into light. Prior to that, we were working from light into darkness, meaning we had shifts starting at 4 p.m. in the afternoon. A truck would be sitting all day in the landfill,
Right.
and then we go and collect it at 4 to go and clean into the darkness. And then if we get a breakdown, we cannot complete. All the service providers are going to bed. I mean, they're retired for the day.
Right.
The vendors, they are closed. And so the mechanics, emergency equipment, so that wasn't practical. And so what I did, I changed it completely around, that we work from light. We wake up before you, and you wake up to see us. And if we have a problem, the business places are opening,
By 8
and yes. And the service providers are waking up to help us, so that we have the whole day ahead of us to fix a problem for the next work day.
Got you. But also, based on what you're saying, then the equipment in terms of wear and tear, with multiple pieces of equipment, then you're able to spread the work throughout instead of having to depend on one truck that is being utilized all day, and then you have a breakdown at some point, and that messes up the entire program and schedule.
It can. But when you start early,
now.
it gives you a chance to pick up, to cover your base another way. You still have some time to sort it out. And yes, so I don't know if you realize, but our trucks are the hardest working trucks on the island, you know.
Well,
every single day those trucks are going.
Okay.
Every single day. Start.
Some truckers out there might have some disagreement with you, especially those that are hauling these 20-yard trucks that are hauling boulders. I'm just saying.
I will point out.
I'm a trucker, so.
Yes, I am. And I will point out a subtle difference.
Sure, go ahead.
When you are operating a garbage truck, and I didn't say driving, when you're operating a garbage truck, it is start, stop,
Stop.
start, stop. That is one part of it.
Mm-hmm.
The other part of it is that you have to do three-dimensional driving,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to be paying attention to your loaders behind. So you should always be consulting your mirrors to see what's happening to the human factor behind you, right? Then you have to be looking beyond them as well to see traffic coming,
Right.
and how to maneuver. Also, you have to be looking ahead of you, forecasting what's going on with the traffic ahead of you, and where the bins are and where you're going to stop. But not only that, you have to be looking up, and all this you're doing interchangeably. There's no other trucker driving aggregate or whatever who has to deal with that. What they do, they load,
Yeah.
and they move from point A to point B, and that's it, straight.
Well, you've backed up your argument with justification. And okay.
That's because I've been there, my
But what
brother.
I can say to you is that in terms of the log that you keep with respect to complaints,
Yes.
that log is probably not as overwhelming as in the past.
No, not as overwhelming.
Because I would think that
It-
you
we-
don't hear any, well, let's put it this way. On the airwaves, you don't hear any arguments about, or any case being made about
accumulation of
garbage
garbage
not
and
being
stuff
collected
like that.
and so forth.
Yeah.
So I would think that that is testimony to the fact that you have had your challenges,
Yes.
look through them, work them out, and now you're at a point where you can tell yourself that your performance is speaking for itself.
Yes. To God be the glory.
Very good. Very good. Now, in terms of some of the things that you're doing over there at Solid Waste,
Yes.
in recent times we have heard of collection of derelict vehicles and so forth. And then, of course, there have been recent programs being undertaken by Premier Brantley, and I believe coming up shortly, other ministers of
Eric
government will have collection of white goods and so forth. So you can speak to that in terms of the role you're playing
Yes.
and the space at the landfill.
Yes.
And you speak based on experience.
Okay.
What challenges there are, if there are any.
Well, you know that we've collaborated even with you, and we still continue to collaborate with your cleanup initiatives
Sure.
over in the St. James's
Sure.
area. And Minister Spencer Brand in Charlestown, we collaborate with him as well. He has had maybe 2 or 3 cleanups that
Right.
we've been very involved with. Minister Eric Evelyn and
Premier Brantley.
Premier Brantley. And primarily, it is our bin truck service which supports all of these activities.
Right.
And also, we also collaborate with other bin truck owners, such as Mr. Mills, and Mr. Webb. We have great working relationship with those guys. So whenever we fall short, we always reach out to them for assistance. And so I wish to tip my hat to them for their support.
And I thank them as well, too.
Yes, in these endeavors. Because I'm sure that during your cleanups you would have seen them
Oh,
coming,
absolutely.
and different color bins. So this is always a collaborative effort, and at Navy Solid Waste Management Authority, we try our best to collaborate as much as possible with all of the stakeholders. We have people like Mrs. Miriam Noor, who has been an advocate, steadfast environmentalist, has been involved in plastic recycling for so long. We remember Biman, of blessed memory.
Quentin Henderson.
Yes. And the Navy's Historical and Conservation Society, former members and present members. The thing about the Navy's Historical and Conservation Society is that it seems that even after their members graduate or move out, they still carry that passion with them.
So it's a culture. that
Yes,
is embedded
yes,
in
yes,
that
yes,
organization.
yes. And even Minister Honourable Janelle Nisbet, I collaborated very much with her when she was at the Navy's Historical and Conservation Society.
And she is now your minister.
She's now my Minister of Health, and so we continue to collaborate. You know, so I mentioned Mrs. No because the recent cleanup, which was spearheaded by the Ministry of Health, was actually a close collaborative effort between Mrs. No and the Ministry of Health.
Okay.
Mrs. No is very instrumental in securing grants. Not big grants, but grants which make a difference.
Yeah.
And so she's able to hire the truckers, the crane trucks, and go out and collect the derelict vehicles. She's very aggressive identifying them. About 2 weeks ago, there was one cleanup on the weekend. And people are still reaching out now, wanting to know how they can be a part of it. And so I've been passing on the information to her so that she can plan the next cleanup event for the derelict vehicles.
Right.
And this is very important.
Sure.
Because I don't think it has been advertised as yet, and maybe this is the first anybody would be hearing about it. But we are about to launch a second white goods and derelict vehicle scrap metal recycling endeavor in Nevis. And we are hoping to get it launched by the end of this month or early in June.
Okay.
All the equipment have been mobilized already.
Right.
Full support from the Nevis Solid Waste Management Authority and the Nevis Island Administration. And so Mr. Jeffrey Folsom, who was here in between 2018 and 2019 and did an excellent job of cleaning up our landfill.
Yes.
And I have to give special mention for that, and I'll tell you why. Anyway, he's on the way back.
Okay.
And we are hoping to have some action before Culturama 50. That's the main emphasis, to get the island cleaned up as much as possible in so many ways for that big event that is coming up for our Culturama.
You want to hold 1 second?
Sure.
We'll come back to that. Keep that in your forefront of your mind. But something came to mind regarding the recycling of plastics and so forth. You would have had a program some months ago with the Republic of China, Taiwan.
Yes.
Who were involved in that. But also let me comment Mrs. No, because I've had a working relationship with her over the years. From way back in the early 2000s, somewhere around 2003, 2004, thereabout, beach cleanup program and so forth. She was involved from way back then and even before that time. But I just wanted to mention that so as to give a commendation for her effort, and she still continues up until today. And so congratulations to you, and thank you very much, Miriam No, and all of the persons that you work with from time to time. But I wanted to speak to the efforts of the Republic of China, Taiwan, and then we'll get back to the recycling, the derelict vehicle program and scrap metal program that you're talking about. And give the reason why I do that, Andrew, is because the efforts that are being exerted by some of these organizations, or in the case of the Republic of China, Taiwan, through their embassy, those cannot go and gloss over, so to speak. They must be commended for their efforts. So that's why I wanted to pay some homage to that.
In 2021, the Taiwanese Technical Mission, in collaboration with ICDF, which is the International Funding Agency,
the Republic of China. Taiwan.
For project development throughout the world. They entered into an agreement with the Ministry of Environment in St. Kitts, which at the time the minister was Minister Eric Evelyn.
Right.
So this came on stream under his ministry at the time. And the project is called the St. Kitts and Nevis Recycling Project. And it was fully sponsored initially by the Taiwanese government.
Right.
It was meant to be a pilot project where they wanted to launch plastic recycling in both St. Kitts and Nevis. And at the same time, I was under pressure from the cabinet,
to try to get plastic recycling on the way somehow at the authority.
Outside of what?
Outside of that. Yes.
Okay.
I was being challenged. Okay? Text messages and so forth. What can we do?
Right.
Okay. And when this project came on stream, it was not really tailored for Nevis to have the kind of involvement which we now have. The project was written for all the recycling to be done in St. Kitts, and our bottles would go over to St. Kitts, and our cardboards would go over to St. Kitts, and that wasn't a practical setup.
Sure.
Because the cost of transportation was prohibitive.
Okay.
Okay. So, anyway, I was able to respond to those who were challenging me in the cabinet, right? And I said, well, I see a glorious opportunity for us to piggyback on this plastic recycling initiative and get something going at the landfill so that we can actually see our bales. We can do our collection and see our bales. But no baling machine was allocated for Nevis, only one for St. Kitts. And it was a very discouraging kind of feeling. And I remember when I was challenged now specifically by Minister Evelyn, right? Because there were steering committee meetings taking place over there, right?
Right.
And I didn't see how we could get a setup over here. And so I kind of lost interest. I said, look, you need to go to St. Kitts and fight to get plastic recycling over here. If you don't go and represent us, nothing will happen. Go. Okay, so I got some strength, right? And I reached out to Miss Joyce Chang, who is the project manager, and we have a very good working relationship, very, very good relationship from the first time we met. And I invited her over, and I told her, look, I know you have it going on over in St. Kitts, okay? And you're based in St. Kitts. But it is not going to work unless we also get a baling machine over here. Yes, but you know, there's no budget. And I said, yes, but I'm telling you, you need to try to get something going over here. And lo and behold, she went back to her bosses, and they found a way that we got a machine.
Okay.
We got a machine, and we were able to improvise and make some adjustments to an existing structure.
Right.
So we had a plant. We had some way to house it.
Good.
And so we started, we had our collections going. People would remember we still have the Taiwanese tent with the banner, collecting 2 Fridays every month.
Right.
The middle Friday around the 15th and the closest one to the 30th.
Gotcha.
Okay? At various locations, Big Six, Expetual, Artisan Village at the end of Hunkins Drive, and up at Delta next to Old House Cafe.
Okay.
Right there, where we collect at those points. And we got it done to the point where, well, one thing I'll say about Nevis was primed and ready for this.
Right.
The general public. And again, thanks to the work that people like Miriam Noor, Isabel Byron, and the other members of the Historical and Conservation Society, the effort that they put in to, and Biman, to collect. We were always collecting plastic. And so there were many individuals who had the mindset that they were going to separate their plastics. Even if nobody was collecting them, they were surrounded by them in the garage, in all over the place.
Sure.
They just didn't want to put them in the regular garbage. And so we started baling to the point where we're at right now. And I could tell you that so far we are going on 40,000 pounds of plastic which did not go into our cell. That's a mountain of plastics that did not go in there to further hasten our demise, because you know it's already expired over there, right? And we are in a position now to ship two 40-foot containers of plastic out of here, and that is what we're negotiating to do right now.
Cool. And with that same initiative, schools were involved as well?
Yes, schools were. There was a schools competition which was run throughout St. Kitts and Nevis.
Right.
But our schools over here competed among themselves.
Among divisions. And
Yes.
Yeah.
But and the St. Kitts schools, they competed among themselves. But guess what? Our schools over here were punching. When you compare what VOJN did,
Right.
what Charleston Primary did, right? What and the
Even
other
St.
school,
James Primary.
yeah, and
I
the
saw some of the data. Yeah.
and the prospect, the prospect. Special ed.
Cicely Brown.
Yes, Cicely Brown, right? And you see, this became a competitive thing where the parents and the teachers rallied behind the students. And so it galvanized everybody. And so the sensitivity which was generated and is still going is something which we are benefiting from.
And of course, one cannot underestimate the value of such an initiative in terms of what is inculcated in the young children.
Yes.
Well, we as older folks, we understand to a large extent, but of course, having them on board,
Yes.
the young children, certainly ensure that those disciplines will be carried on into the future.
The good news there, Brother Alexis, is that the Taiwanese Technical Mission and ICDF,
Yeah.
they had high-level delegates who came here in February of this year
Right.
to inspect all the work which has been done on Nevis and in St. Kitts. And they asked, remember I said it's a pilot project, so that's phase 1.
Right.
And they were so impressed that phase 2 will be rolled out later this year for another 3 years.
Good.
And phase 2 now will be capitalizing on all the lessons learned from phase 1.
Phase 1.
Lessons learned like we need a bigger baler, bigger baling machine with stronger compaction,
Right.
so you can get higher density, so that the payload, when you load them in the container, you get more weight, because you get paid by the weight when you ship the plastics out.
Got you.
As it is right now, the machine is a bit light, but we were still able to bale all of the plastics that we receive,
Wonderful.
and we have them over there. I challenge anybody to come over. I invite them to come over and take a look at what is happening at the plant. There's no big money in it. It is heavily subsidized
Right.
by the Taiwanese Technical Mission.
And that we are thankful and grateful for. But here's the flip side to that. You said there's no money in it, but I am looking at what we are trying to accomplish in terms of saving this planet, saving our island to start with, because throughout the world, if everyone do their little bit,
Yes.
collectively, will make a difference throughout the entire universe. And that is what we're seeking to accomplish. And that's why the effort is, that's why I told you we cannot gloss over things like
Right, we
those.
cannot gloss over it. And
That's of
space too.
importance.
Space is very important to us. And 36 square miles,
Yeah.
we don't have any space.
Sure.
We just don't have any space. And so we have to actually do what we can to reduce what goes into the landfill.
Landfill, and also not only that, what end up in our oceans.
In your ocean, in our oceans, yes.
Because of course, all of this, there's some connectivity to everything. You throw a bottle down and it ends up into one of these water courses or into the gut, and it makes their way into the ocean. And over there, of course, you've spoken about space, and it is critical that these particular items that doesn't break down as other items do, you're able to take care of those and make sure that they are put in the right places. Yeah.
Well, you see, it's obvious that we probably will not be able to find another location for a new landfill. And I'm not even sure that we want to find a new location for another landfill so that we could just collect, spread, and bury.
Right.
What we're looking towards is remediation and rehabilitation
Right.
of our existing space, which has all of the infrastructure already there. Already there. All we need to do is rehabilitate it, change our our way of going about waste management,
Right.
and that is where our focus is right now. This is where our focus is right
I'm
now.
certain I mentioned to you some time ago, in 97, there about 1997, when I went to Florida, South Florida. I saw this landfill and it started out almost like this tabletop.
Mm-hmm.
You go back now,
So-
20 plus years after, it is like a mountain,
Mm-hmm.
but it is well manicured,
Mhm.
grass on the side of it and so forth.
Well, landscape.
Well landscape, and I'm sure that will be the intent with this. We can get this,
Yes.
whereby it is there. You don't even know it's a landfill, but it is.
But there's still a lot of space over there
Mhm.
to be utilized
Right,
by using better technological methods,
right,
more up-to-date methods
right.
of managing our waste.
Absolutely.
So that is where our focus is right now, and I won't say too much more on that, but we are working hard.
But you
And as I said,
yeah.
the challenges keep coming out to me,
Sure.
and I keep working hard along with my team.
Well, with the right temperament, you'll get there.
And I have to
And the
mention the
finances
board.
too.
The board.
Oh, the board, yeah. Well, speak to that, because I had a note here to ask you who are some of the members, so that you can give them their
Yes, and it's a pleasure for me to mention the members of my board, my fellow directors. I'll start with Mr. St. Clair Wallace, who has had a long and illustrious career in waste management administration, because I think he was the first chief.
Well, he was the permanent secretary, I believe, when the authority was established, way back under the first administration, CCM administration.
Yes.
He would have been the permanent secretary to the Minister of Health then, the Honourable Nurse Jean Harris.
Yes, he
So
was.
he had exposure from then,
Yes.
and he's still.
And so he brings a lot of historical value
Sure.
and know-how to the board, and I think he was a previous chairman as well.
Maybe I'm not,
Okay.
not sure. He would let us know.
Yeah,
If he
he
meets
will.
you on the street,
Yes,
before,
yes.
He'll
But
give me the whole history, but I know at one
his contribution is well documented.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we have Deputy Chair Ms. Latoya Jeffers, who young, dynamic, bright, passionate. She's also the Assistant Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Health. Yes. We have Mr. Anthony Webb, long-serving civil servant in environmental health. And we have Mr. DeJona Liebert, who is our legal counsel. We have Mr. Oscar Brown, again, somebody with a lot of passion and business savvy.
Right.
And Miss Camille Kelly, last but not least, Miss Camille Kelly, another business person.
Businessman and architect. And,
Yeah, architect.
You know, and the likes.
Highly
Okay, very
technological.
good. Well, I want to commend you, your staff, the entire board.
I forgot myself.
Well, you're the secretary of the
Yeah, I'm the
board.
secretary of the board.
As
Yes,
the
yes,
general
yes, yes,
manager,
yes.
Okay. So, because as I said before, it takes a collective effort.
Yes.
You know, not just one moving part, but many moving parts to bring this whole thing together to ensure the island of Nevis is kept clean and pristine.
Yes, and so we are working hard. We are working hard to just to take the authority to another level. Another level. That is all we are trying to do.
Well, let's go back to where I cut you off some minutes ago, a long time ago, I must say, regarding the scrap metal program that you were talking about, whereby, you know, the collection of all of these derelict vehicles are going to amount to something here shortly that you want to speak about. Yeah?
Okay. I am sure that those who would have been affected or who would have benefited from previous scrap metal initiatives at the authority would remember that there was a company that came in and they came in with a baler to squash they squashed them and they had them in piles over at the landfill. Big piles of cars, but only cars, because that's the premium. That is what they thought they would make more money from.
Right.
But with the scrap metal program which we ran in 2019, 2018, 2019, it didn't just, it was not just about cars and premium metal. It was about white goods.
Okay.
All the white goods were removed.
Oh.
You're talking about the refrigerators
Fridge,
that
washing
the majority
machine.
of them are plastic anyhow.
Ah.
You see, and the stoves and the wash machines and all that. Everything, no matter whether it brings a big yield or small yield, everything is baled together and sent. So that is the beauty of the scrap metal initiative, which is spearheaded and carried
So
out by
let me
Mr.
ask,
Folsom.
items such as old containers, those cargo containers. When I say old, there's some sitting around with their roof leaking, and people have abandoned those. Those can fall into the program as well.
Those can fall into the program. However, not many of those get to the landfill
Right.
because somebody is always trying to squeeze the last bit of use out of a container. They even build roofs. When the roof corrode and is leaking, they
Right.
cover them with galvanized roofs, and stuff like that. But yeah, all those as well.
Okay. So you said that is what end of May, June thereabout, we will see some movement.
Yeah, it will be rolled out soon.
in
The
that
commitment
regard.
is made.
So the derelict vehicle program is one that we are saying will continue or is continuing, because the more the merrier. I still see some derelict vehicles around. People seem as though they have these things as their prized possession, when in truth and in fact they are a major concern on the island, where you have rodents and all sorts of different animal, will thrive in these type of environment, and water collection, mosquito breeding ground.
And they
for
continue
mosquito.
to devalue and devalue and
And it
devalue and
looks-
devalue and just become junk,
Absolutely, it defaces the island of Nevis, and
Yes.
that is why, I'm hoping that at least you are aware of any additional measures
Yes.
that the administration.
Yes, we are getting ready to start giving out some citations.
Okay,
We are getting ready to start issuing citations for removal,
right.
or we just take it.
So you just take it. So in terms of a citation, of course, there will be something placed on this particular vehicle
Yes.
with a time and
What
date,
you have to do, you have to establish a paper trail.
a paper. Okay,
It has to be documented
right,
because you never know where it will reach.
right.
And without a paper trail, then you don't have a leg to stand on because the person have to be given
Ample notice.
notice. Yes.
So let's say vehicle A sitting down somewhere on the side of the road for some years. Is there a process whereby you can establish ownership?
Yes.
And once ownership is established, and it has been there for argument's sake, 5 years, 10 years, it therefore means that it's no longer roadworthy. I suppose the process is such that you will establish that this is one, it is in an area that is not acceptable to
Yes.
start with. And then, of course, once you establish ownership, you contact the owner. If the owner is not here, then, of course, and the owner cannot be found or cannot be reached, then the next step is probably, once the citation period elapses with no response, then you pick up and go.
We take it. Yes.
And you say you don't want to wait till it reach because you understand we are in a litigious
Yes.
society.
Yes.
So you might very
Precisely.
well end up
Precisely.
fighting
Precisely.
at the court. But any which way, I wish you well with that program, because Nevis, we always talk about Nevis in such a way where it's well, I normally call Nevis paradise on earth anyway. I don't necessarily always do it that way, but I try to leave a little space
Tone it down a
and
bit.
say, well, we're the closest thing to paradise and the
Okay,
nearest thing
alright,
to
I
heaven,
get that.
because these things are subjective in many ways, So, but I know for sure Nevis is our prized possession and it's our pride and joy. So we want to make sure that the positives of Nevis are encountered by anyone who comes here. There's a saying: you never get a second chance to create a first impression.
That's true.
And that is why when people drive through the various communities in Nevis and they see all of these old derelict vehicles, they remind them of somewhere else. We don't want to do that. We want when they get on the plane or when they're about to get on the plane or about to get on the boat or whatever to get out of here, they are leaving with a very good taste.
Yes.
Of Nevis, and that is what we have to do in terms of ensuring that we're all playing our part. So those of you out there with those derelict vehicles, and it is your prized possession, so to speak, figure out a way. If there are parts needed from it,
take them out.
Take them out.
Document them.
Document them, because a lot of these older vehicles as well too, and the body is not in shape, so you can't even say you can use a piece of fender or something.
No.
I mean, we don't want those type of vehicle on the road either. Anyway, we want to make sure that we are keeping our road network safe. And safety must be our guide in every regard. So I'm encouraging persons to play their part. Do what is necessary to rid yourself of those vehicles that you know that there isn't much value in them anyway, apart from some little part you can get out of it or whatever the case might be. Yeah? Okay, so Andrew? But it's just about 4 minutes to 1. Time go by quickly, yeah?
I told you time will run us out.
By quickly. But solid waste, the Navy solid waste, let me just, before we wrap up quickly, I'm always intrigued by the fact that when we were, and I mentioned it to you not too long ago, that when we were contemplating building this Mundo track over here on Long Point, there were a lot of discussions about flies and rodents and all the bad things and all the negative things that may come about as a result. People won't be able to eat their food and all kind of things that were being said. But alas, we have had that track there for a number of years, since 2018 I believe, and we've had sporting activities there over the years, and up to this point in time I have not heard one negative comment or anything tied to the landfill. Yes. And the performances there or the environment there. So
and the management and staff. And at this point in time, well, I will give commendation to Mr. Rudy Brown,
right,
who was our operations manager up until recently. He now has a new posting. Okay, but he also worked very hard to control that situation, to make sure we had adequate coverage, better than 95%, so that no questions could be asked. There could be no doubt at all as to whether we were responding to the challenge, to make sure that nobody could blame us for anything.
Sure.
And now Mr. Brown is not with us, and now we have Miss Latoya Kelly, who is head of operations over at the landfill, and she also continues to do a wonderful job of keeping better than 95% coverage. And if you look at the cell right now, it looks, well, it's not manicured like the one in Miami,
right,
but he nicely covered and smooth down, patted down, because we've had a very more active than before, because of the renovations which were done in St. Kitts to the Kim Collins Stadium. So we had all these St. Kitts sports meets over here.
Yes.
So we were very active, and thankfully we did ourselves proud, we did Nevis proud, and we kept the landfill well covered, and so all the predictions and the apprehensions were not justified.
Yes, wonderful, and of course I can say here, I have not heard one negative comment up to
well, I'm happy for that.
I mean, if it is being said, I haven't heard.
Yes.
Yeah, but they'll always be negative, but we try to accentuate it.
Well, you know, they keep us on our P's and Q's. They keep us attentive, you know.
Sure. And listen, you did tell me, Andrew, that we can stay and talk all afternoon, but
you have to go to the funeral.
Yeah, but it's also 1 minute.
But we could stay for another hour.
Yeah. Well, you'll pay for that and stay by yourself. Right?
all right.
But I want to thank you very much for coming this afternoon. Yeah, and some persons are saying that we should go on for 2 hours on this program, but 1 hour is enough.
It's better short and sweet.
Short and sweet and to the point is right, yeah? And so that's why we keep it this way. But it was indeed my pleasure having you here this afternoon, and I want to thank you because you didn't hesitate Last week you had another engagement, of
Yes.
course, and that is
I attended that Mr. Bridgewater's funeral.
And Bridgewater was associated with the
So, yes. He was the general manager when I took over here in 2015.
Right.
And when Rudy and I walk around the landfill, we look at each other and we shook our heads. Hey, we need help. Straight to St. Kitts. And we sat with Mr. Bridgewater, and may his soul rest in peace, and Mr. McCall, his assistant.
I think we're going to hear the music just now. Andrew.
Okay, thank you for having me.
We want to thank you, and we want to thank everyone for listening. And of course, this program is heard every Friday from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. And indeed, I'll come when I have to during my lunch hour and spend my time with you. It was indeed a pleasure. Thank you, Andrew, and to the entire Nivision public, thank you for listening, and have yourself a wonderful day. May God continue to bless all of us, bless the island of Nevis, and those of you who go to church on Sunday and praise your God. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful weekend.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company Limited.